Greetings, everybody, and welcome back for another BMF Discussions podcast. I'm your host, Rich Billy Jr., and today I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
Dana is doing okay. She's excited about this episode. It was layered.
Yes, it
An
was.
onion.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it absolutely was. It absolutely was. A lot of the things that we're going to get into in this discussions podcast today. So we are going to be talking about BMF episode 4 titled Runnin on E. Now, obviously, this just aired on Starz. If you're watching this, you know that you've already seen the episode, and we're going to be getting into some spoiler territory when we start talking about some stuff. So this is a warning ahead of time. If you haven't seen the episode yet, I would recommend you watch the episode and then come back and then listen to this discussion, and feel free to join the discussion as well. So before I get started, thank you everybody that checked out the last discussion we did. We had a lot of fun talking about episode 3, several of the plot points, and so on and so forth. So thank you for the continued support, and we hope that you also will check out this episode. If you like the discussion, feel free to consider liking, comment, and consider subscribing if you like, but no pressure. But yes, so today we're going to get into episode 4. I actually have two main questions that I want to ask Dana as well as you, the audience. And then Dana will have a couple of other things that she wants to talk about regarding this episode. So, first and foremost, I have to talk about this as the first question because this is what stood out to me in the episode. Now, if you know, when we reviewed this episode, when we did the first review for this episode 1, I said that in BMF, I mean, whenever I saw the violence that happened, I was like, man, that was just it kind of was like an adrenaline rush seeing something ridiculous happen to people just randomly getting taken out. So obviously, let me talk about this right now. We need to talk about Lamar's killer instinct because in this episode, Lamar, obviously he gets out, and we're gonna talk more about his dialogue with Meech as well a little bit later on. But I have to talk about how he just killed these two guys that were in the pack with Meech to try and do their part, working with Meech. Now we saw how he took out, the heavier guy first. Very brutal,
Shameless.
very violent. And then we saw, moments later how he took out the other guy that was a part of that group. Now I just
It
want to
was
make this
poopy.
comment. Yes, yes. Oh, his name is Pookie. Okay.
No, I said it was poopy.
Oh yes, yes. Well, it was. It definitely was that, literally and,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
and figuratively. But let me just say this right now. When I heard about this BMF show, because Gary Swaby, obviously he's not on today's show, but I understand that Gary loved the history of this whole organization. But I was wondering to myself, Mafia, right? That's a very interesting name because anytime I've seen a Mafia movie, sometimes the characters get taken out. It's a pretty brutal deaths. This episode, in the way in which Lamar took out those two guys, that felt like a very gritty, very brutal deaths. And again, we know that Lamar is compensating for the fact that he could not get action with his lady friend in this episode. So he had to have another outlet for his pent up aggression. And we saw that with him taking out these two guys as brutally as he did. So I want to ask all of you, as well as Dana, what did you think of Lamar, the new Lamar, who calls himself a beast? Or as I like to call, the wrath of Lamar, if you will. So I want to ask you, Dana, as well as the listeners, what do you think of this new version of Lamar? Is he even more dangerous than he's been before? Do we think that something's going to happen with him further down the road? So what do you think, Dana?
So, first of all, I wanted to say that I actually almost threw up, even though I'm telling myself that is not real. When he emptied his colonoscopy bag on him and it fell into his mouth and entrails and stuff. And so they did a great job with the chocolate shake. But that was something else. But in order to talk about that discussion, we kind of have to go back a wee bit to Alvin, because if it wasn't for Alvin, we would not have gotten Lamar. I want to say 4.0 at this time because he's been around and down and up and around and sideways. But this new version of Lamar would not exist without Alvin. And by the way, quick plug, since this is dropping on Friday, you can check out my interview with Donnell Rollins, who plays Alvin, and we go into a deep discussion about the character and what it means for the overall, not just the show, but what Alvin represents within that time period and also for today. And then we also talk about his career. So go check that out. But with that, it was really interesting where he does not feel like a man. And I think that what we've seen with Lamar and his trajectory as like being the guy who's the main guy in charge, right? And not just in charge on the street, but he's feared, he's respected, more feared than anything else. And he's a little crazy. But and as you look at the Flannery boys, they come in and you see how it's not just disrespectful to him as a person, but they see him as a man. It's being disrespected. Remember, we talked on the previous episode about how, he took Meech took his girl from him. And how that can also make you feel less like a man. He lost his job, basically, his boys on the street, his girls, his daughter he's searching for again. He started off with just wanting to be like a kind of a scary family man, but he doesn't even have that. And now he's riddled with bullets. He can't poop like a regular person can poop anymore. He has to do the colonoscopy bag. He's in a state of depression. And that conversation with Alvin was kind of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Only you can show them who you are. Is this the life you're going to continue to have? You're going to start moping because you can't satisfy your woman? Is this who you are? Is this what you've become? Because this is not what I've known you as. And that speech invigorates him. And he puts all of the rage of not just I was shot, but I lost everything. And you disrespected me. How dare you? And that I do want to say, that is where we get that mafia mentality. Remember when we see them get crossed all the time and we see it brutally? If you look at any of the Godfather films or any Scorsese film, just in general, we've seen how brutal the takeouts are. You're lucky if you're just taken out with a gunshot. That's the good thing. But we've seen the torment and the psychological games that are being played. And I think Lamar can represent that. And now that we got this new version of Beast Lamar, I like it. We have that brute force where he doesn't care where you're at where to attack you. We've seen this previously, but now he's using that brute strength. And that whole thing with the guy in, I think it was sandwich, I'm not sure what it was, because I was like, no, and looking away. But you just seen him with his bare hands, and then the other one with the bathroom fight. He just popped up out of nowhere. Literally, he was just like, I'm here. And then, took him out like that. And that scene was brutal. So I like this. And then when we got later, with him chasing them down in the car, trying to drive them off the road in the middle of the daylight. So he doesn't care. We know he doesn't care, but this is no more of an unhinged version that we're getting. So I really like this, but I wonder, like I stated before, is that pure rage going to blind him completely? In terms of him not being able to think clearly, because there's a certain strategy that you should be able to play. So I wonder if he's going to get caught before he's able to take them out. And again, I also wonder, what is his end game in terms of, okay, you want them dead. Say if you do accomplish that, what's next? You've taken down your enemies. You've taken down the Flannery boys. What's next for him? And so I am very excited to see this version, but I'm still waiting to see what else is there. But I like it. And now that they did flee, I wonder if he's going to come up against someone else that's way bigger than Lamar. Is Lamar going to meet another foe? So this is really interesting.
Oh, I will say that's an excellent teaser. I have not seen any other episodes of season 2, but some people might have. So that's a good teaser.
It's a good teaser. And then, we'll also have the whole cheating death situation. We'll get more into depth with what's going on. But remember, his whole thing was like he doesn't understand why Meech is still alive, strutting around like a peacock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so again, he feels even not being able to kill him makes him feel less of a person. Like he's sitting there with a colonoscopy bag. That itself can be considered humiliating depending on your certain stance of how you feel about that. I mean, you're pooping in a bag and you have to change it. And, the guy, Alvin, is explaining kind of this whole self care routine that you have to go through. So just along with feeling less like a person, like he got shot. And then when you look at Meech, Meech is still alive and kicking and bagless. So that's
Yeah.
just another thing. And
So,
so,
and that's a
yeah,
good.
so, oh, sorry.
Oh no, oh no. Go ahead. Continue.
No. Just so like what Alvin was saying was be yourself and take back what's yours. So how much of yours is he going to take? Is he does he want more than what he had previously? So that's what I kind of wonder with that in-game situation. So yeah, that's it.
That's a very good question, and I look forward to checking out that interview as well. So definitely make sure you all check out the interview. I was just going to make a few quick comments. Is that what you said about the duality, and we will get into that a little bit later. But I just want to add that yes, as you said, this episode, Lamar has the colonoscopy bag. He's unable to, perform with his lady friend, but yet Meech is able to perform with his girlfriend,
What
if
are
you
his
want to call
lady
her ex
friends?
or whatever. Yeah, his one of his baby mama. He's able to perform with her. So yes, this is
All
duality
the
showing
mamas
you. Well, yeah,
twice.
twice. But but it's this whole thing about the duality of him being able to continue to do what he wants to do, and then they show you both sides of that. One is able to do something, and the other is not. So I look forward to seeing that. But the other point that I was going to mention is to go back to what you said about the mafia mentality. I would think, that Lamar has a hit list, and I can't wait to see him try to go after every single person that crossed him, because again, it was that was in his organization that decided to go over to work with Meech. So I would like to see, obviously, well, my assumption is that episode 5, we already know that Terry and Meech they are headed towards Atlanta, so they're going to be gone for a while. But I wonder when they come back if they're going to show Lamar taking out other people, or maybe this is happening while they're in Atlanta. He's taking out other people that he needs to take out. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But I really like how, like you said, they captured those scenes. They were very brutal, but the way you described everything of how it told the story and the motivation, that was very well done. So I look forward to seeing what happens from here. But I wanted to mention that first because you already know, man. When I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty violent, pretty brutal. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be talking about that after this episode. But hey, that was the first thing I wanted to address. So is there anything else you wanted to say on this topic before we go to the next one?
No, I just want to see how this ends up playing out. And also, how do you suffocate someone with a plastic bag and then they rip it open? Because he was in the bathroom, right? And he grabbed the plastic and he put it over his head. But the
Yeah.
guy had access, and at the side, he was able to pull it down to make it like at
Yeah.
least an opening, and he still died.
Well, I guess they wanted to try to give him a fighting chance, but either way, because I mean, he put up a better fight than the other guy. I mean, he was trying to get at Lamar too, but wasn't
Wait,
going to
he's
work.
the other guy. We didn't see him die. We just saw him choking on poop.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. We didn't see him die. He just got brutally wounded. Probably should have killed him, straight up. So we'll be
Jesus.
sorry, but but I don't know. We'll see what happens though from here because there's going to be some type of ripple effect, and obviously the police did not yet notice these people are getting taken out like that. So I will be very curious to see what the reaction will be in the next couple episodes.
And
But
also,
we'll see.
Lamar is a good listener because
Oh
he
yeah.
said you have to change the colonoscopy bag, and he
Oh
changed
he.
that bag. He emptied it.
I guess he definitely emptied it, all of it. Uh,
Oh,
so we'll see what happens next. Um, so my next question, this is probably going to be a pretty lengthy discussion here because I'm very curious to hear what you think as well as the people who are watching this discussion. I want to know what do you all think about the decisions that both Terry and Meech made in this episode. Do you think that they made wise decisions, or do you think that they made bad decisions? Now, let me first let's talk about Terry first. Obviously, he decided that he was going to help out his brother Meech. He decides to try and do some work with Boom, who is Markeisha's husband. We already know that Boom has been abusive towards his wife, so on and so forth. But he decides he's going to do business with him and take some product. Now he makes the decision to get Denise involved as far as transporting. Obviously she didn't know that she was going to be driving a vehicle that had products in it, but she ends up getting pulled over, and of course this puts the whole business in jeopardy, and this leads to him also having to get to leave. This what leads to him abruptly deciding, yes, we need to get out of town immediately. And then for Meech did have an opportunity in this episode, early in the episode, when he was approached by Bryant, where he and the other detective, he has said, they give him the opportunity to say, hey, so this is your opportunity to put Lamar away, just to tell them that Lamar was the one that tried to shoot you. And the thing that's so funny about it is that the officers already know what happened last week. They know that Lamar was the one that came after trying to shoot and kill Meech. So they gave Meech the opportunity to go ahead and tell them, yes, Lamar did this. You need to put him away. And he decided not to. And he gave a very excellent explanation as to why, as well as Lamar. And I'm going to let you dive into that discussion, because that stood out like a sore thumb as far as what they were talking about and how they refer to themselves as Batman and Joker. I'm going to let you get into that. But I just asked the question first and foremost, what do you think about the decisions that Terry and Meech made in this episode? Were they good or bad decisions?
It's really interesting because the show episode opened up with On My Brother's Keeper. And it kind of really seems that throughout the series so far, when they are separate, they're terrible and they make not good choices. But when they're together, that's when they're their strongest. And so we see that where Terry, everyone means well. Everyone is there to protect each other. But you don't think clearly sometimes when you're missing your other half. You need that other half of the brain. Together, I think they make one complete brain that can run this operation. Separately, they're a little wayward. But I feel that even though they mean well, this could get them into further trouble. Because not only is he making this deal with Boom, we have them at the very end, they're now on the run. So, one, I wonder what happens with this money situation. Is he now able to go to Atlanta and pay it back triple fold? Boom, I'm wondering if he's going to look at this situation and think, oh, they ran off with my money. Just period. They ran off and now he has to go after them. Also, we don't know the extent of how Boom runs his operation. It really seems that Markeisha is the brains behind this. It seems that Markeisha is kind of similar to Raquel in power. Not in terms of that fierceness, I'm in control, but the brains in terms of knowing how things are run, able to give advice, know what to do. So I wonder how much input does she have with Boom in the business? Does he just view her as, a woman who can't do anything? Or does he actually value her opinion? Is she going to be able to outthink Boom and therefore is able to protect Terry longer? Because I think that, I don't know, again, we're not really introduced with Boom where we can sit down and know what he's going to do. Is he going to start just running up to different connections and realize that they're in Atlanta and start making trouble there? So that's what I'm kind of concerned about. And it also seems that Meech does not trust him at all. He said specifically, you messed up. We should not have gone to him. So I wonder again what that situation is going to bring. In terms of, sorry, in terms of with Meech, getting a little confused. With Meech and his situation, he's not fully there because obviously he still has bullet wounds and holes and probably another fragment. Because they pulled out that when they found that one bullet, where's I don't know where the other ones are, but he's still obviously not well healed. And so I wonder to what capacity is he able to fully help when we go to Atlanta. Obviously, it's not going to be this long drawn out injury. I won't be surprised if by maybe not this episode, but but like 2 episodes from now, he's going to be up and running and normal ish again. But trying to make these new connections in Atlanta, I wonder how that is going to play out. And I actually look forward to them now going to Atlanta. This is new faces, new characters, new interactions, new culture, you know. So I look forward to what that will bring. And I don't know if you want to touch into the Lamar uh Meech or
Yes.
Terry situation. Okay.
Yep.
So sorry. I'm okay. So with this Joker Batman, this was really interesting because obviously we are like, oh, they're back and forth, just let it go and move on. And then when we get the analogy where they said we're Batman and Joker, I just want to pull up what they actually said because what they said was really important. And I loved how everything went together. But okay, so basically they were saying that when they came face to face with each other, they would not turn on each other, and the reason is because they're Batman and Joker. It depends on the situation or how you look at it, on who is Batman and who is Joker. They will both. You could both say they're villains, and you could both say they're heroes. Depends on how you look at that situation. But if you ever look at the original, Batman and sorry, Batman and Joker, even from the comics, you would know that these are fighters who, without each other, I don't think they would both survive. In terms of they need each other. And that even goes from the comics that their origin stories both gave birth at that same time. Without Batman, you do not have Joker. Without Joker, you don't have Batman. They make each other stronger. Their hate fuels each other. And if you ever notice, whenever given the opportunity, Batman doesn't kill Joker. I'm not talking about the other comics, where from universes and things, but they don't ever kill each other because I feel there's a mutual understanding and a respect that they have for each other. And I feel that they both need each other because if Lamar doesn't have someone like him who is smart, remember, he did that whole situation. He said, oh, he's still alive. I don't understand why he is still alive. I have to go at this a smarter and a better way. He's challenging me. And even with Terry and Meech, you look at they survived then, but another second, Lamar's trying another tactic. So they have to learn how to outmaneuver again. So without each other, I don't think that they would be as strong as they are. And they are each other's greatest foes. But at the same time, you could say because of that, there is a respect for you're still not down despite everything. And in a way, it is that dark love story. And I don't mean like love, but you can love someone and respect them and like that very platonic, but I hate love you. Why are you still here? But I don't want anyone to come against you, only me. Yeah, wouldn't it be really disappointing if Lamar was randomly taken out in an Omar situation from The Wire with a random 5-year-old in a grocery store?
Yeah. Yep.
Remember how angry we all was when that happened?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's only I can get you, no one else. And I think that they have that respect and they keep sharpening each other's tools and they end up trying to outmaneuver everyone, but they end up needing each other. Who is Joker without Batman and who is Batman without Joker? Bruce Wayne and whatever Joker's real name is. So they end up creating that identity. They end up creating that name on the street. So that is what I felt why they didn't turn each other in, why they both didn't say anything. It wasn't out of stupidity. It was out of respect. I am not going to let them get you because only I can get you.
Yep.
We're going to be forever tied to this from either the day we both die. I don't know.
Mhm.
But whatever it is, I'm not going to turn against you unless it's me that's actually pulling that trigger. And if we've seen this repeatedly, sorry, in the Powerverse, Starverse, 50 Cent verse,
Yeah,
look at Tommy and Ghost, right?
yeah,
That whole relationship is very complicated. Kanan is complicated when it just goes with those two. Kanan killed his own son. And even though he tried to kill Ghost multiple times, they ended up working together and there's a mutual respect. It's that love hate cycle that they keep going through. And right now, they're each other's greatest villains, but they need each other in order to become that iconic person of who they are. We remember the
absolutely.
Joker because he's forever tied to Batman. We remember Batman because he's forever tied to Joker. No offense to any of the other supervillains, but when we think of Batman, we don't necessarily run to, I don't know, the guy who with the dummy, the ventriloquist. We think of Joker first. Then we think of, hey, Dr. Freeze and Riddler, but it's always Joker first. When they do a Batman movie, who's playing Joker? So they're forever tied. And so that's why I don't think they turn on each other. And even though the cops could easily arrest both of them and actually let it stick and stay, I don't think they will. Because in a weird way, they need them as well. Because
Y-
if to say all the criminals were to be wiped out, what happens to the cops? But what job do they have? They don't have any other
Oh,
job.
oh yeah. Well, we know for Detective Bryant, it's the thrill of the chase of getting
Mm-hmm.
both getting the brothers, stopping, shutting down BMF. So that makes a sense, 100% sense what you said as far as they need them to remain people that they go after. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a quick point I was going to add to what you said. I agree on everything you said about the Batman and the Joker dynamic. One movie still to this very day that I absolutely love, The Dark Knight, and Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, because they had the same, and he there was similar lines in that movie about saying that yes, you need me, I need you. So that's 100% on the money right there. Everything you said about that, and so glad that they put that line in there. And then of course, we saw in episode one how Detective Bryant does have a son that is into comics. So I like how they're putting some of this stuff in there to try to let you know more about that type of stuff as well. So yeah, I just want to make a point on that, but continue. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about the
No, that was just kind of mainly what I wanted to say, and I guess that answered my own question as to what is the end goal. Each other.
yeah.
Don't know how that's going to play
Well,
out, but each other. And remember,
what we
the
do,
real Lamar is still alive.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. What we do know from that documentary is that they're both still alive. So obviously they will not kill each other, but we are going to possibly see more moments of them going against each other, which should be very entertaining, obviously. Um, but I look forward to seeing where things go from here for sure, 100%.
Just don't give me
So
super friends.
no super friends, no super friends. So
Because I know the Joker and Batman had to work together at one time, but
no, well
I don't know if I want that here.
well, here's what I will say. That might not happen, but I will say I am very, very interested in seeing what happens with K9, because obviously it feels as though Meech is going to have to deal with him at some point, and that is somebody where we haven't seen him have any type of beef with Lamar yet, but I kind of feel like I want to see how they're going to resolve that, because I feel like Lamar would take out K9 if he feels that he can get closer to taking out Meech. So I want to see how
He'll take
that's.
out anybody.
Yeah, yeah, because so
Except
far
his
they've done an
daughter.
excellent. Yeah, yeah, of course he's not going to touch his daughter, but we do know that Lamar they've done a fantastic job this season. Before Lamar came back, showing you how dangerous K9 is, how ruthless he is. So I'm very curious to see what happens when those two characters come, interact with each other. But I look forward to seeing. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I know it's going to happen for sure at some point this season. So I look forward to seeing what happens when that goes down. Um, so Was there anything else you wanted to touch on with this topic before we go into some of the extra things we wanted to discuss with this episode?
No, just that I really love that scene. I'm happy they included it because many people are like, just turn on him, and you can't.
Yeah, I agree. I did feel that I did feel initially like that was a way where Meech could have just said, "Yeah, let me go ahead and turn this guy in." But again, the dialogue that happened after that, it's just it makes sense that they have to keep going after each other. You don't want no one else to take away that moment. They need to continue to go after each other because that's what makes it exciting. So we'll see what happens. But those were the two topics I wanted to get into. So now we need to discuss a few of the other things you wanted to get into. Some little important details we might have missed in this episode that might become an issue later. One
Mm-hmm.
thing I do want to say, right off the, right away, because you mentioned this to me earlier. Lamar's
Mm-hmm.
ex starting to mess with drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be a big issue later, and that was a very excellent observation that you made because the thing is that this whole time Lamar is fighting to get his family back. So how ironic would it be for her to also get hooked on drugs and go down this dark path? Again, drugs that Meech introduced to the community. This is why it's a big deal. So what are your thoughts on that? Because you brought this, you were the one that did say you wanted to talk about this. So give me your thoughts on this particular situation.
So what we did know, and it goes into what they were saying about the Reagan era and the war on drugs was actually war on black people, and they really didn't care about the drugs. And any docu series that you watch basically is about we put drugs into the country in order to purposely destroy the black community. It's another
Mm-hmm.
form of racism. It is, just because you're not being called the N word and being hung on and by a noose on in a tree does not mean that the version of racism stopped. It's always evolving and changing. And this war on drugs was a war on black people, which was said during the show. I think the real Meech said that. What is really interesting is we have to go back to the previous episode because remember when they was in that crack house or that house, sorry, and there was the teacher, not the teacher, the nanny, who used to
Yeah.
babysit the kids when they were younger. And she also has a kid of her own, but now she's completely reliant on the drug. She's a drug addict. And we saw that the kid is now abandoned and running around mommy, and it showed the cycle and the trickle down effect of what drugs did to not just the country but to the black community. They were more susceptible. um and so we had that, and that was the teacher. And yes, that was sad, but we have to bring someone in who's closer. And by having one of the baby mama's girlfriends, I'm not sure what it is at this point because he's juggling a lot of women if you look at it. Um, we have to have in someone closer. How does this personally impact him? And not just him, but his child. He's leaving his child with people that, he's separated now from this situation. And he is a part of the broken system. Remember when they was in the church and what the mother said, we'll get back to that because it was another sticking point for me. She said, they don't come from a broken home. They come from a broken neighborhood. They come from a broken city. And then Charles said, yes, but they contributed to that brokenness, essentially. And by having them be drug dealers, and now she has that access to the drugs, and he kept saying, oh, you don't know what you're doing, to me, felt like that was foreshadowing. And just because he took that bag does not mean that one, she does not have another one stashed away somewhere, and two, she automatically is going to stop. Like she's not going to go back to whomever that person it was that gave her the drugs. And it's to also show you that this whole drug situation is way more bigger than the Flannerys. Other people are drug dealers too. And while you may try to remove yourself or someone that you love out of that situation, there's always someone who's there to take their place. So I thought that was very interesting and very important. And I'm not sure about this because I'm slightly losing track. But she does have one of Meech's daughters, right?
Well, no. Now Meech has
No,
his daughter staying with her real mom.
what's
The
right,
other girl is her
Soraya.
real mom. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so then either way, that I wonder if Meech was to return back from Atlanta, what state is she going to be in? That's just kind of what I'm wondering there.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Also, the other danger is that with this woman deciding to use drugs, we also know that Lamar has a daughter of his own who's in that house. So I'm fearful of what would
Mm,
happen if his daughter was to also start messing with this stuff. That's why I say for Lamar's character, if he does end up losing her and his daughter because they get hooked on drugs, that'll be a very tragic thing, and you further understand why he really despises Meech and wants to go after him. But again, he also was selling drugs too. So I mean, I want to see how that's going to play out. But that'll be very interesting if it goes in that direction. It's very dark if it happens, but
hmm
I kind of feel like they had that in there for a reason to show you. And of course, she's looking at it as she started messing with it because she wanted to get away. She was stressed out because she saw that Lamar was back. She thought that he was back, and she's worried about the situation. But again, deciding to do these things because you're worried about the situation, that can sometimes have a lasting impact, and you can end up getting hooked. So I'm very curious to see which path they're going to go in with that stuff for sure.
And also, there was an episode. Well, this happens all the time regularly, but
Yeah.
what stuck out to me is that whatever the episode, I'm not sure which one it was. Again, this was like 20 years ago, The Wire, where there was a kid who accidentally ingested the drugs. They got into the drugs and they died.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that is going to be the same fate as Lamar's daughter. Because
That's
kids
very
get into
possible.
everything. And so I'm not
Well,
sure how secure it is.
one thing we do know is that I think Lamar loves his daughter a lot more than he's not really worried too much about his ex. Obviously, if he can get her back, he will. But if something happens
Mhm.
to his daughter, I think that would break his heart. So that could happen. It's a real possibility that could happen. So I'm very curious to see if that's the direction that it takes. Again, it would be a very dark storyline, but it's something to really emphasize the dangers of drugs, how it impacted and tore apart the community. So I kind of feel like some of that stuff might actually happen, but I guess we have to wait and see if that's what the plan is for the actual storyline.
Right. It's just me. I get dark.
Yes. It's all good.
I'm
It's
like,
all
let's
good.
kill the kid. Yes.
No, no. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Um, so were there some other things you did want to bring up? I know you brought up
Yes.
the Charles
I
thing.
have a
Yeah.
I have a listicle. We made
Okay. Go
listicles.
ahead.
No, the church scene. Can we get into the church scene? Because that was the biggest thing for me. And I know at first you was like, I don't see nothing's changed the relationship. And I'm like, that's because you a man and you think of what a man's brain and not what a woman's brain. That whole scene was emotional and it was terrible. And Charles is boo Charles. Charles has a point, but still boo Charles right now. So kind of going back with that scene. So they're in the church, right? They did the whole thing with Snoop, and they was asking for like, haven't been in church for so long, I'm a heathen. But basically, I guess testimonies, prayer circles, requests. Um, and that's when Lucille stood up and explained that she needed prayer for her son, and that I'm trying to get my notes. One
Well,
second.
well, actually, no. Pastor Swift had said that we need to hope for safe recovery for Meech, and then that was when people started walking out, and then that's when Lucille got up, and
Okay.
then that's when she went off on her speech.
Yes, you are right. So that's when
Mhm.
she got upset. So they were like, they got upset and the people walked out the church. And this was so layered because in this again, I'm not attacking church or religion. I'm attacking people where they are, oh, we go to church, we're so high and mighty, we pray for you, pray for us, Jesus will save us. But that second where they will stand up and walk out of church when someone is asking for prayer, because I understand if you may not agree with them or their life decisions. But at the same time, on a basic human, we come from God's situation. We're all God's children. They're asking for guidance and prayer, that you walk away from them and you deem them to be unworthy of that prayer. So that right there, that pulled layers. And she explained, that everything that I've prayed for, your philandering husband, your hot mess, your son may be on drugs, your other one is a crackhead, your husband's hoeing around with the entire congregation. Look at Snoop Dogg up there, he a hoe too. And I pray for everybody else. But when it comes to me, that you cannot give me that same grace, what type of hypocrite are you? And that is not what God, Jesus' religion stands for. You know, Jesus said, come all my children. Everyone is God's kids. And for them to act that way, you know, it basically said, screw you. And I do not blame her for being upset. But this was the really interesting part. Charles kept kind of gave her that look of, okay, now stop now, please stop. And he seemed so emotionally detached. And you can see where their relationship, the further cut of their relationship. We had it be very obvious and very blatant before when we saw Charles get up in there with the church choir number and was dancing and playing with his little you know, the guitar, hey baby, and in front of the wife. That was another sign of disrespect. But this right here, it felt like cheating on an emotional level because he was not there as support. He was not even there to say, amen, that's right. Instead, remember what he did? He ran to that same woman who he was giving the googly eyes and the guitar to. He ran to her and was like, yeah, basically, I would have walked right out if he wasn't my son either. And I understand his thinking in terms of he's contributing to this broken city. And I understand that frustration, but at the same time, support your wife who is trying to support the family. And you see where their mindsets are completely different. Where it seems like he is willing to throw his kids out to the wolves because of what they do. Meanwhile, because there's a whole quote that she said this. She said, and it was really our child did not come from a broken home. They came from a broken city, a broken neighborhood, our city. I'm not asking you to forgive my son. I'm just asking to see him alive and healthy. And if you walk out that door, you're saying that I don't deserve to see my babies walk and breathe on their own. And I wouldn't wish that on none of y'all. So the basic, she's not asking for money. She's not asking for anyone to go out of their way. She's asking to be seen and for her children to be seen as basic human beings. And they would rather walk out of the church than to do that. And Charles would rather do the same too. He is, and that I felt was disrespectful because not only we had the disagreement where we've seen them in the home, but you're bringing that to another woman. You're bringing that thought outside of the house to let other people know, look how fractured our foundation is. And to me, that was further of the broken relationship that they have and a form of emotional cheating.
I was going to say I agree. I agree with the points that you made. The two things I want to mention is, as far as Charles in talking with the other woman initiated the conversation, and then that was when he responded. So you're
supposed to shut that down.
So he's not supposed to say anything to her when she says she tries to comfort him and talks about, is he okay? He's not supposed to say anything at all.
You say, yes, I'm okay. You don't go around and be like, oh, if Meech wasn't my son, I would probably do the same. You're showing a woman trying to stand for her family, and then you're talking to somebody else saying, oh, I probably wouldn't do the same. I don't blame y'all.
Yeah.
You don't see that divide?
I mean, oh no, I see the divide. But the other thing that we didn't really mention, which I think is important, and this is that towards the end of the episode, when Meech and Terry have to go, Charles is the first one. He gives them all the money he has. So even though he does not agree with what Meech has been doing, he doesn't agree with what Terry has been doing, still as a father, he's concerned about their safety. He gives them all the money that he has and tells them, yeah, y'all take care of each other. I think that's important
in private.
That,
in private. But in public, You're showing the business.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, listen, I know that obviously they do not have a good relationship right now. We've seen that from episode one. As I said before, uh, the cheating is going to happen. I feel like it's inevitable to happen because
It already happened.
no, I mean physically cheating.
No.
The emotional stuff is there, and I agree with that. But I think when he physically cheats, that is something everybody's going to be talking about because he could have did it in the last episode when he went over to the woman's house and was fixing the fan, but he didn't. Although I know he obviously thought about it. He thought about it. So let's see what happens. But I definitely agree with the points that you made that he should have stood more by Lucille when she had that speech. Um, it's a very complicated situation to be in because you know that your
Mm-hmm.
sons contributed to ripping apart the community. You still have to stand by them, but I know you also don't necessarily agree with them. And see this why I'm glad they put this in this particular show because there is another show that is ending. It's a show that Gary and I will be covering, season 6, Snowfall. Franklin Saint and his relationship with his father, because his father disagrees with everything that he's done in terms of how he ripped apart the community, and then they've had their back and forth, and we saw how that ended. Now, obviously, we need to see what happens in season 6 if the father comes back, because we know he supposedly is dead, but we don't have confirmation. We didn't see a body, none of that stuff. We'll see what happens. But I'm glad they put that in there because it makes sense for the parents to feel some type of way about what their sons are doing. And then again, in this show, you're seeing the impact of drugs, how it ripped apart the community as well. So I agree 100%. He should be defending his wife 100% in this thing, because the one thing that you touched on again, also, this is how the church still is today. There's a lot of people that look at others, they judge others the same, separately, but yet they're out here sinning also. Everybody sins, and especially in the church. So that's why I was like, that's very interesting they put that in here, because that is still going on to this very day. There are people that are hypocrites,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. So they had to put that in there, I think, to really emphasize that point. And of course, as you mentioned, Pastor Swift, aka Snoop Dogg, this guy is on his third marriage, and then he was looking at that woman last week. So yeah, it's a very, very valid points. All everything you said was valid. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
it just frustrated me because it was like you just saw this woman crying and sad, but standing alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least stand by her. He's sitting this, just stand with her. And I think if he would
Now,
have done that, yeah.
oh no, continue. I have a question after you say that.
No, I'm just saying that I think that even if he would have done that, just shown some support, then it would have meant so much more to
Yeah.
them as a unit, and them, asking for, please just pray for my son. And then remember, it wasn't just that. Right after she made the speech, she's like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna do." She talked about the car coming around, and
Yep.
he runs
Yep.
off to the girl. Hey, I don't know
He
how I feel about
says,
the how you doing.
now here's the thing. He said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna catch a ride with my other friend here, the other guy or whatever." And then she says she goes
Hmm.
away, and then he starts talking to the woman again. Then she says, "Oh, okay, Charles, it's time to go. It's time to
And
go."
she's just staring
So
there, and
the
he's all
question I have
invested in the conversation.
exactly. So the question I have is, why don't they get marriage counseling? They need some type of counseling. Do not do it with Pastor Swift,
Not
obviously,
for
because that
Snoop.
means that he going no, he because he will get knocked out. As Charles warned him last week, he will get knocked out. So I think they need some type of marriage counseling if they want this to work, because it kind of feels like they're not on the same page. It really, if they communicate better and they understand each other's points of view, things could work out. I don't know if we want to see. Well, Dana, you said that you want to see a divorce, right? Just like we saw in the Best
Well,
Man
because
show.
I'm dark. I'm dark, so I'm cool with, like, them getting divorced, little tiny baby getting inside the drugs, and that's a whole dark story there. But no, I'm just
Yeah.
dark as it is, so I'm all for team divorce. And then I want her. What's really interesting about this so far? It made me flip flop. in regards of their relationship and who's right and who's wrong. Because remember previously, I was Team Charles. I'm like, she's smothering him. Remember that whole thing with the porno magazine, and he wants to touch her, but no, I don't want to touch you. And then all of a sudden she gets all dazzled up after she spit the credit cards, by the way. So that's more debt for him. Yep. Then she's like, now you could touch me. And then he don't want to touch her because he's looking at this other woman. And I'm like, oh, it's a little too late. But then now all of a sudden I'm Team Lucille. I'm like, Charles sucks. You need to get rid of him and find a man who loves you. Go cheat on Pastor Swift just to get on his nerves. So I like it. But I like how they're able to make me flip sides like that. But I'm just unless they can get some kind of deep-rooted therapy, because I think that's what they need. They need that deep-rooted therapy. But unless they, and I don't think they can either one, they can afford it at this point. And I think everybody has so many problems themselves that they can't help other people, which is the problem, the issue with Charles and Lucille. They have so many issues separately that they can't seem to even basically communicate. And I think what's missing from them is just simple communication. I don't think there's hate that's there. I still feel that they love each other. There may be a sense of boredom and a sense of loss and longing, but that can be easily solved if they allow themselves to communicate and to put aside their egos. They're two ego people. They have they both have egos, and it's bumping against each other. And neither one is willing to kind of back down and see the other one's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
I agree.
So I think, but once we get to that physical cheating, I feel that could be it could be a point of no return. I don't know, because some people will still take the other person back continuously, and we've seen that. But I do feel that Lucille can be that kind of person. And I don't know if they're so stuck where they'll end up needing each other, because there comes a time in a relationship where you just don't see yourself without that other person. So you may look the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where they're at in that relationship. But I'm cool if they just took a break right now.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what happens. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, were there any other things you wanted to bring up, or
white girl? I just wanted to bring up the white girl. I'm sorry. What's her name? I can't call you white girl. We can't do that no more. Don't cancel me. What's her name?
You talking about Denise?
Denise. So, really quickly with the Denise, I was so surprised that their plan would unfold so quickly, because if you remember how it started off with, the drug on the crime on the war on drugs and black people being arrested, and so they broke down the crack and the cocaine. And if you look at the Reagan laws, and then later on, we're not there yet, but we'll go into them, how Bill Clinton and he did the Rockefeller stuff, and that's a whole other issue that people had problems with. But crack cocaine and powdered cocaine, even though they're the same, they're not viewed the same in terms of prison sentence. You will get basically, don't quote me, please, because I don't know the laws, but you could essentially get life with doing or being in possession or selling the crack cocaine as opposed to powdered cocaine. And that is because stereotypically, white people do the powdered cocaine, while crack, we've seen it. You look at the ads, how they demonize, it's the black people who do the crack cocaine. And look at it's the crackheads. You never call them powder heads. You ever notice that? It's always crackheads in terms of demeaning someone, and how the laws looked at it racially. There was a lot of commercials back then that was very racially motivated towards black people to demonize them, those crackheads. But with Denise and her being white and white privilege, she would essentially get less time, and they also don't question or go out brutally as they would do with black people. That huge thing with police brutality really kicked up, like they said, in the 80s, when we had the kind of the weaponization of police. Remember, again, they couldn't call you, it wasn't racism in terms of the N-word and a noose, but it was racism in terms of the prison system and police brutality. This is also the age of when we had the battering ramps come in to apartments and how they decimated and destroyed a whole neighborhood. I'm going to get too far down the rabbit hole, but I wanted to say this with Denise. The fact that they were able to use Denise as a white woman to kind of shield them from what was really going on. I wanted this to be like, oh, look how smart. And then they have this whole like team of white people who become runners. And that's how they end up making a business out of it. And you can maybe argue they could use the cab business towards that. But no, they took her out in the first trip. Did she make it even a mile out of the city? I'm not even sure. But I was really surprised at how quickly that went down. I don't know if they fumbled the bag with that one, but it was great disappointment. So that was the one thing that disappointed me, was how quickly that folded. But she didn't rat them out yet. We don't know. They're still letting her stew. But I did not like how they pulled that off.
I agree. I will say there are going to be some consequences, I think, though, from this particular situation. So am very curious to see, because again, the other thing is now Terry is going to be in trouble with Boom as well. So I will be very curious to see what happens with that. Obviously, it may take a little bit of time because again, they're on their way to Atlanta. I'm assuming the next episode they're in Atlanta and they have to adjust to how things are in Atlanta. So I don't know when they're going to go back to Detroit, but whenever they get back to Detroit, they got a lot of things waiting for them that they have to address. So I'm very curious.
And who's to say Detroit? I was just saying, who's to say that Detroit won't come to Atlanta?
Oh yes, that's very possible. That's very possible.
I mean, she got caught with Boom's drugs as well. So
absolutely. So I'm curious to see how that plays out for sure. I'm sure that word will get around that they are in Atlanta. So as you said, there are a lot of people that could just show up there, so we'll see.
So I wonder if this will be a unique situation, and by unique I mean from the other Power show that I can't remember. Raising Kanan. Sorry, 50,000 shows in this universe. Raising Kanan, where remember how they framed Unique? I wonder if they'll figure out a way to frame Boom, since technically those are his drugs, from my understanding.
That is a great question. That's a great question. We'll have to see how that plays out because it can go in a lot of different directions. But I'm very curious to see what happened. I think obviously the excitement is going to be at the end of this episode. What awaits them in Atlanta when they get to Atlanta, because it's new territory, new things they have to adjust to, as you said. So, I mean, I'm very curious to see how that plays out. But it's going to be very interesting from here on out for sure. Sorry, but again, it's been a great season so far. So I imagine it will only get better from here on out.
And just to throw out one more thing quickly, when the heck did Terry? He's still in school. That threw me.
Well,
I was confused.
Well, maybe not after this episode. He won't be because I mean, they in Atlanta. I'm pretty sure he ain't coming back for a little while. But we'll see what happens.
No, I'm just was like, when did you go to school? We didn't even see a clip of him. Does he even own a backpack?
Terry is still in school, but he finally got his woman now. So let's see what happens from here on out. And I can't wait to see when he has to take care of Boom, because that's coming. He has to take care of this guy, because this guy stands in his path of getting close to Markeisha. He's already close to her, but to really seal the deal, he's going to have to take this guy out at some point. So let's see what happens.
And B-Mickie, still remember his situation is in the wings.
Oh yes. Let's mention that briefly. We did see how they had that whole conversation at the beginning of the episode, and Terry called them out and said, "Yeah, I've been working. I've been doing the stuff that you're supposed to be doing." And you saw how B-Mickie was very jealous when Meech was talking with his brother. So I kind of feel like this is it's going to give him ammunition to really want to work with Bryant. And that's why I want to see what happens from here, because a lot of things I think are going to get turned upside down. So very curious, but B-Mickie, I don't think that character will be alive by the end of the season. If I had to make a guess, I'll be very surprised if he somehow survives. But his time is coming to an end soon.
Yeah, we can see the prickles, like you said, the prickleization of jealousy coming in, and I'm like, that's his brother. But like, he's like, I'm your number. Wasn't I your number two? So that, and then I wonder what's because remember now that they're separated, how is B-Mickie going to run the operation in Detroit? Because he's still technically number two.
Exactly.
So is he going to start sabotaging? Is he going to make up some bad deals? I don't know.
That's a good question. Plus, you know that the others do not respect him the same way they respect Meech. So he's going to have some issues dealing with them as well. Maybe not the people that he's the closest to, but the other group that they were working with, some of them people, and they're like, no, we're not going to answer to this guy. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. We'll get some answers sooner or later for sure.
That is for sure. But overall, I just want to say it was a really great episode, and I like that they're doing the outro. So with everybody wants to be an MVP, but that doesn't mean you win every game. Sometimes that just means that you'll live to fight another day. And so I like that because, again, that goes with the whole Batman Joker situation. We both want to be on top, but just the fact that we're living another day, that's enough for us. It should be. And in the situation of them fleeing, again, from Lamar, trying to kill them, they're just, not everything has to be a big drawn out fight or a gun battle. Just being able to survive is living.
I agree. Yeah, I enjoy it. Yes, and I agree. I enjoy that. This is a great season so far. We're going to be at the halfway mark next week, so
yes,
definitely, I would encourage everybody to continue to check out these discussions. We might have a review for the next episode. I'm not sure, and we may have Gary back for the next episode too. We'll see what happens, but we have been enjoying talking about the show. And like I said, if you enjoy this content, please do please do comment, tell us your thoughts on some of the things that we discussed, and consider subscribing. But do you have any shout outs that you would like to give, Dana?
First of all, I really want to shout out Starz. So thank you for enabling us to kind of see these episodes in advance. Also, every week I will be interviewing another guest star or star from the BMF episode. So you're watching 4. So episode 4 for this one, we have Donnell Rollins, who plays Alvin, the whole guy who gave Lamar all that really great advice, and we got Lamar 4.0 out of it. So we have a really great discussion about that. In the incoming weeks, we will have the remaining cast. We will eventually get to talk to Lamar. Well, the actor who plays Lamar. He's so synonymous with each other now. But so thank you to Starz for that, really. And also, we have a lot of more stuff coming up. If you are a fan of hippity hop or hip hop music or the rap music, as the young kids say, hip hop is turning 50 years old this year. I have an interview with Chuck D and journalist George Nelson, who did a huge PBS docu-series about, basically, it's about how hip hop was used as a protest all throughout the years and how hip hop essentially changed the world. And we talk about Black Lives Matter. And we also talk about today and different contributions to rappers and what music sounds like today as opposed to what it sounded like before. So it's a really wonderful, long 57-minute discussion. So you can tune in for that as well. And we'll have a lot more interviews with other TV shows we will be talking about and breaking down. And even I have interviews with Carlos King and the entire cast of Love and Marriage DC. I know it seems to be completely different than say Power, but is it really? Because, conflict is conflict, and reality shows, they're built on conflict. And this show, BMF, conflict. So you can check out an array of different interviews that we have on the site and on the YouTube page. Sundance is Sundancing, and I've been trying to cover as much as I can. I'm only one person, but we're getting it done. And we still have the Television Critics Associations. So I think I talk too much. Anything that you have, Richard?
Oh no. Well, first and foremost, definitely feel free to check out all the stuff that Dana mentioned. It's a lot of interviews, Going to be a lot more BMF discussions on this channel. Just a quick reminder that we are going to still be talking about Snowfall as well as Power when those shows return over on the main Koalition channel. So I would encourage you, if you already subscribed to the Koalition channel, definitely stay subscribed because there's a lot of things coming to that channel. And also for those that are interested, we have been doing a Last of Us discussion as well. So feel free to check out the Koalition Gaming channel, and you'll find our discussions on that channel as well regarding that show. But outside of that, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody that has been supporting the discussions. Also, thank you to Starz, as Dana mentioned, for allowing us to check out the episode. And again, if you are just stay tuned. We have a lot of things dropping on this channel, so definitely stay tuned to this channel, the main Koalition channel, as well. Consider checking out the Koalition Gaming channel as well. But thank you all for your continued support. Definitely, if you missed our previous discussions, there will be a link somewhere that you can check out on this page. But until then, take care, and we'll talk to you all next week.